on the scene there. Michael.
Hello, Brooke. My socks got wet. That cameraman gave me new socks. I am fine.
That's good, Michael, but what's the situation there?
The names of the hikers are Casey Allman, Brian Emery, Ashley Thorson. The hikers were last seen 174 hours ago. Since then, 3 very big storms have hit here. There's a 1.24% chance that all of the hikers are alive. Why are you looking for the hikers?
Well, we're still hopeful that we might be able to find them. There's been a break in the weather, so we're hoping that...
Over the past 7 days, the average high temperature has been 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Over the past 7 days, the average low temperature has been 6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right. So we did another sweep of the park from the air, but we didn't see anything.
Without shelter, the human body can withstand temperatures this cold for a maximum of 3 hours. Is there shelter in the forest for the hikers?
Not that we know of.
They are frozen.
Well, we like
Shh. This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is the number to get on the air to tell us what's on your mind. We want to know what your resolution is. Do you have a New Year's resolution?
Do you do any New Year's resolutions, or are you like some of us and don't really care about making resolutions for the new year?
I do care, and I make the same one every year. You ready for my New Year's resolution?
Absolutely. Tell us your New Year's resolution, Chris.
No longer will I write 2024 on checks.
Excellent resolution. I like it.
It's very similar to my 2024 resolution, which was to no longer write 2023. In studio, it's Chris,
Stu,
and Riley, back from vacation in Utah.
Yes, and back. It's weird. Stu and I thought that like last Christmas show was our last.
Yep. We gave kind of a false impression that we wouldn't be here tonight.
Well,
here we are.
I was told that as of the end of the year we would no longer have the scheduled show, but here we are. So I think this is the last one, but we'll find out. Who knows?
Or we might do some more. Who knows? But it's 2025. Anything could happen. The world could blow up. Trump could turn into a dinosaur or a lizard man. Or
that'd be fun.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
I'm all for it. Do we need to vote on this? I think we've got a unanimous opinion.
Okay. It's unanimous in the studio at least, so let's make it happen.
Trump needs to turn into a dinosaur.
Or a lizard man.
Just reptile.
Yes.
Or reveal himself as a reptile.
That would be much better, because then we would know that he was an actual reptilian hiding in a human body instead of a human, which he claims to be.
That would be good. I don't know if he's ever made that claim.
I don't know.
Has he ever claimed to be human?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't know if there's any record of him ever saying, I'm a human.
That'd be kind of a weird claim to make now, wouldn't it?
It would be a very weird claim to make.
Or would it be odd that he has never claimed, for the record, I am a human? I'm just saying, I am.
I believe I'm a human too, but, anything could change.
Yeah, you think about it. Trump, I don't think I've ever heard that. And I know I never heard Biden say he was a human. Wow, I think we're on to something here. So
I'd be interested in hearing Mark Zuckerberg say that.
I think he would dodge that question.
Didn't one of these guys say that anyways? They like came out and said, no, I'm not an android. It's either him or Musk or somebody. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, that's pretty specific, though. I'm not an android, meaning you're not half machine, half human. No, android could be... No, that would be a cyborg. I'm sorry.
I think they said something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's not exact.
But that certainly leaves lots of room for the conspiracy-minded.
It does.
Conspiracy-minded.
Yeah. And speaking of leaving lots of room for the conspiracy-minded, the news headlines for a New Year's Day were kind of filled with crazy stuff. I think the biggest story, at least seemed to break big time, was the quote-unquote act of terrorism in New Orleans. This was a gentleman. I have a story here. Let's just take a look at it and see before I start misquoting and stating false facts. This comes to us from NOLA.com. Live updates: death tolls rise to 15 in suspected act of terrorism on Bourbon Street. At least 15 people were killed and dozens were injured after a man barreled his truck down Bourbon Street in New Orleans during the early hours of New Year's Day. The FBI is investigating the mass casualty attack as a potential, quote, act of terrorism, unquote. Mayor LaToya Cantrell and New Orleans Police Department Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick have called the incident an intentional attack. The perpetrator, who has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsud Din Jabbar, also shot at police officers, injuring two of them before he was shot and killed by police. Investigators are still working to piece together details of the attack. Stay up to date to the latest here. And
did you really have to read that part? Stay up to date with the latest here. Just kidding.
I'm just reading the story, man. Come on, give me a break.
I mean, they could stay up to date with the latest here on Free Talk Live, maybe.
This continues. Explosives found in the French Quarter. 5 p.m. Authorities found 2 confirmed improvised explosive devices in and around the French Quarter Wednesday morning after a man plowed through a crowd on Bourbon Street. About 30 minutes after the attack, police found a homemade bomb near police cars parked on Orleans and Bourbon Streets. I've been on that corner. The device was a pipe bomb with nails and plastic explosives concealed inside of an ice chest. A second bomb was later found in the 600 block of Bourbon Street. A remote control that controlled 2 of the bombs was found inside the suspect's truck. Additional explosive materials were also inside the truck, including 2 mason jars with clear explosive material. Okay. Whatever clear explosive material is. 4:30 p.m., the police released the first official photo of Shamsud Din Jabbar, who law enforcement say is responsible for the New Year's Day attack on Bourbon Street. So I hate acts of violence. I hate the taking of innocent lives.
I agree. I think it's an abhorrent thing to consider that there are people out there who love violence so much and believe it's the answer to all their problems and believe that, committing an act of violence is going to get attention and going to solve the problem. But, sometimes violence comes out when people don't feel like they're being listened to or feel like they're getting justice done, so they become violent.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I don't know any of this guy's background. I tried to do a little research this afternoon and couldn't find out much about him.
Well, these kinds of things generally, it takes 2 weeks to find out what really kind of like to have any sort of picture of what went on. And then in some cases, it's months later you find out, after it's no longer a story, you find out the full extent of what happened.
Yeah, and it's not something I'm scouring the mainstream media for. I'm sure theirs is going to be a very sanitized version of what actually happened in this guy's life. And actually what happened here. Everything being reported is what is being spoon-fed by the authorities to mainstream news outlets. So I always give these types of things a few days for the boots on the ground, for the regular people to start producing cell phone video and showing what actually happened.
Well, the so-called authorities are the people that supposedly know, and usually when the so-called authorities say something, the average person is going to be like, well, this authority figure said this, so it must be true. So, for us who live in the liberty community and might be a little more conspiracy-minded, we generally think that, well, the so-called authorities are going to lie to us and not tell us the entire truth. So, who knows?
Yeah, and quite honestly, I just feel like I've been burned too many times.
Oh, yeah.
I've gotten the official story, very soon after a whole lot of different things happened, and they were quickly debunked. Not quickly, but within a few days.
What are you saying? The official story usually doesn't hold up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I find too.
Yeah.
What kind of madness is this?
I know.
Just kidding.
But really, I mean, that's, I guess, my New Year's message to everybody would be don't assume that everything is exactly the way it is as first reported by mainstream media and by government authorities.
Even if it's Trump, even if it's Biden, it doesn't matter who's occupying the awful office or who's running the so-called FBI, they're going to not tell you the entire truth.
Yeah. I think if anything, that is the first story to doubt. That what they officially put out there is the first thing that you should immediately question. And
I think they passed the track record of lying to you more than half of the time now. And
I don't know. That'd be an interesting statistic.
And so you probably could just go with what the opposite of the mainstream is telling you. Just find any channel on your television that parrots the same thing another channel is telling you, and you'll be sure you got the mainstream narrative.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's sad. You know, in a country that is supposed to have all these protections to your rights, like, you know, freedom of speech and a free press and all these things, we're not doing so well.
No, some of these things are like barely intact, kind of like my last truck.
It's insane. So I'm just going to hold off a couple days and see what happens. If there were indeed bodies in New Orleans, I feel sorry for them and for their families.
Yeah, it's a huge tragedy, and you know, sometimes it's easy to be like, well, we can blame the government or the FBI or somebody, but you know, tragedy happens, and our hearts go out to those who have been affected. At least mine does. I don't know about anyone else.
Yeah, well, regardless of who committed the act of violence.
Absolutely. I feel horrible for the victims and everybody who's affected by it.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And then right on the tails of this, like I was still researching this guy and seeing what happened with that. Then we get news that out of Las Vegas, a Tesla Cybertruck burst into flames outside a Trump hotel in Las Vegas, killing one. So again, very sad to hear that somebody died because a Cybertruck blew up. But I just looked at this headline going,
it's really strange.
One of Elon Musk's products burst into flames outside of a Trump hotel and killed somebody.
Yeah.
That just sounds way too pat for me. Did anybody else have that reaction? I mean, I was just looking at this going.
I mean, I don't like to jump to conclusions like that, but I can understand where you're coming from. I mean, it seems apropos to the story of the world today where a Cybertruck made by Elon Musk, you know, one of Trump's allies and cronies, just exploded at a Trump tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. I wonder a lot of things about this story. Like, was the truck on fire and the guy was still driving, or
yeah, let's get into this one.
Like, how is it that people were in it while it was parked and it blew up? Is my question.
This comes to us from NBC News, published today. Clark County Fire Department confirmed it responded to a vehicle fire early Wednesday. This is Kathy Rosenblatt and Lori Caldenoy of CNBC and Susie Gamboa. A Tesla Cybertruck exploded and burst into flames Wednesday morning just outside of the entrance to the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, killing a person inside the vehicle and injuring several others standing nearby, local officials said. The suspicious blast is being investigated as a possible terrorist attack. 3 law enforcement members briefed on the matter told NBC News. A motive has not yet been established. Tesla CEO Elon Musk, a top Trump advisor, insisted on X that the explosion had nothing to do with the vehicle. Quote, We have now confirmed that the explosion was caused by a very large fireworks and or bomb carried in the bed of the rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself, Musk declared. Quote, all vehicle telemetry was positive at the time of the explosion, unquote.
And that should, make people pause. The Cybertrucks have the ability to send data to a company like Tesla, and so Tesla can be like, "Oh, let's look at this data and see what the truck was doing."
Was
they
it
can look at it
overheating?
remotely.
Yeah, they can look and see if the batteries were overheating or.
I mean, it sounds cool on the surface, but what else are they going to know about it?
Yeah.
What can the police do with that information? I mean, Musk is going to be Trump's right-hand man in the most powerful position in America. It's going to be a little frightening.
Yeah, it frightens me. The blast came just hours after a driver in a rented pickup truck plowed into New Year's Eve revelers on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing at least 15 and injuring more than 30 others before he was shot dead by police. Quote, with an explosion here on an iconic Las Vegas boulevard, we're taking precautions we need to keep our community safe, unquote, Clark County / Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Chief Kevin McMahill said at a news conference, quote, we're looking for secondary devices. There does not appear to be any threats to our community now, unquote. The explosion outside the Trump International Hotel was reported about 8:40 a.m. local time. We were told that a 2024 Cybertruck pulled up in front of the hotel, and in fact, I can tell you it pulled right up to the glass entrance doors of the hotel, unquote. McMahill said, quote, we saw smoke start showing from the vehicle, and then the explosion from the truck occurs, unquote. Again, this was in front of a casino, so I can imagine, I don't know, I would guess a gazillion closed-circuit cameras must have caught this.
Yep.
But hey, we've seen other things happen in Las Vegas hotels where suddenly there was no meaningful footage at all.
Like the shooting 2017?
Yeah, it was like they were like, well, we didn't really catch a good view of the guy moving like 3 carts of guns up through the lobby
up to his hotel room.
So I went digging into that story just in case anybody's curious.
Sure.
And it gets really weird to where it looks like they were going for a payoff for a political assassination sort of thing of a very important guy. I think the crown prince of the Saudi family.
Okay.
So that kind of went wrong, and I don't know, the Manchurian candidate guy that was supposed to be doing his job just went off his program or something because something went wrong, and that was the result. But
Stu, that is
it's wild.
It's
and I'm
paralyzing, but I'd love to look into that if you have anything else on that.
I'd have to look back through it in order to get a better picture, a more accurate view on what all that was. It got really weird, though.
That does seem weird.
That sounds really weird.
It does, but it doesn't sound that surprising. And
right.
again,
it's less weird than though the reality is that they just couldn't stop this guy from firing like thousands of rounds for how long? Like he was up there for a long time, just shooting away,
15
having a great old time.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And magically, they just couldn't get to him for all that time. And then all the press conferences afterward looked like something out of a movie, and they were just totally weird. So there was a whole bunch of stuff right up front that looked weird about it, but when you dig into it, it gets even weirder, as most things do.
And you'll notice that what we did here was we asked 2 questions. We said we would look into it. But what we didn't say was, Stu, you're freaking crazy. I mean, didn't you see the news stories, the official response from the authorities? Didn't you read any of that? Come on,
Didn't you read the police reports?
Yeah. Come on, man. That one sounds completely wacky to me. But in light of in the span of one day, we have another terrorist attack in the United States, this time with a truck carrying explosives and driving at a high rate of speed, something that we've only really seen. It's happened. I can only think of one driving attack in the United States, and that was a couple years ago in Michigan, Wisconsin, somewhere up there. Maybe it was Illinois. But that seemed like a guy that was just upset. This one, it seems to be being presented to us as a... Oh, and the other thing I read about the attack, and they were all talking about, was the fact that they found an ISIS flag in the guy's truck.
Huh.
Now,
That's convenient.
Is the ISIS flag still the solid black flag?
I don't know.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know what these flags look like.
Yeah. I believe, if I recall, maybe I'm wrong.
No,
Somebody
I thought it had something on it.
To me, I
It
always
was
thought
black
it was
with a white something on it, I thought. But
Yeah,
maybe
okay,
not.
okay. But in either case, they found this guy's truck that had been shot up, and yet they had found an ISIS flag in it. I don't know.
It was like the passports they magically found blocks away on 9/11.
Yeah, this is all kind of crazy. So they haven't said anything, but it leads me to believe that they do have some footage from this Las Vegas hotel. Cahill said it was unclear whether the person killed in the Cybertruck was a man or woman. So that leads me to believe that it was probably a pretty hot fire. Clark County Deputy Fire Chief Thomas Touchstone said first responders began to extinguish the fire. They realized at the same time that there were multiple persons with injuries located around the vehicle. Of the seven people injured, Touchstone said 2 were taken to University Medical Center in Southern Nevada at Las Vegas. The injuries of all 7 people are considered minor, McMahill said. Touchstone said officials are working to recover the body of the person from the Cybertruck. Officials asked the public to stay away from the scene. The Cybertruck had been rented from Turo, the company that rented the truck that was used just hours earlier in the New Orleans attack, which is also being investigated as a possible terrorist attack.
Oh.
Turo did not respond to a request for a comment. In video circulating online, sirens can be heard in the Trump International Hotel lobby as the vehicle just outside the doors is engulfed in flames. A person on social media said they were near the front door when the vehicle exploded and forced to leave their luggage by the door. It's craziness.
Yeah, 2 potential terror attacks in one day.
On New Year's Day.
It's going to be an interesting year.
Crazy. 603-283-6160 is the number to call. If you have any thoughts on either of these stories, give us a call. This is Free Talk Live.
If you're looking for work, the person you are applying to is probably so swamped with applicants that he or she is tough to reach. So call early in the day, before 8 a.m., before the palace guards arrive. You'll need your prospect's direct number, and here's a sneaky way to get it. Suppose the company's main number is 555-5000. You should call 555-5012. When someone says, "Good morning, Pam Johnson," you should innocently say, "Oops, somebody here must have written this down wrong. I was calling for Tom Frederick. What's his direct number?" If the very next thing you hear isn't Pam giving you Tom's number, it may be, "Good morning, Tom Frederick." For more tips for job seekers and getting better results in all your day-to-day communication, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The FBI says it believes the suspect in the New Orleans New Year's attack wasn't acting alone before he plowed through a crowd of revelers, killing at least 10 people. It also revealed that the man, a former member of the U.S. military, had an Islamic State flag tied to the back of his pickup truck. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
The FBI believes Shamsuddin Jabbar was not solely responsible for the attack on New Year's morning, and it has appealed to the public for new information about him. The 42-year-old Army veteran drove a white pickup truck around bollards and through a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at 3:15 in the morning local time, before coming to a stop and exchanging gunfire with police, where he was killed. Officials found weapons and explosive devices in the pickup truck, as well as more explosives in the French Quarter, the area where the attack took place. The major college football game known as the Sugar Bowl was due to be held in New Orleans on Wednesday night, but it's now been postponed by 24 hours.
Police in Las Vegas are investigating a vehicle explosion outside the city's Trump Towers hotel complex. Videos circulating online show a Tesla Cybertruck exploding in front of the hotel entrance. According to media reports, the explosion happened after the vehicle pulled into the valet area of the hotel. Deputy Chief of the Clark County Fire Department, Thomas Touchstone, says it was an electric vehicle that caught on fire and that the driver has been killed.
There were 7 minor injuries, 2 of which were transported to UMC, again for minor injuries, and there is 1 fatality within the Cybertruck.
There's no information yet on what caused the fire. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is a close ally of Tesla owner Elon Musk, and the two men spent New Year's together at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Hopes of a ceasefire being close in Gaza appear to be fading, with a new report saying mediators haven't been able to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate in recent days. FSN's Trent Murray is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Despite earlier hopes that a deal could be close, the Wall Street Journal reports that Israel and Hamas have hit an impasse in their negotiations, and there's no immediate signs the two sides could be about to agree to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Citing sources close to the negotiations, the reports suggest a proposed deal which would have centered around a 60-day ceasefire in exchange for 30 Israeli hostages being returned has now been walked back by both sides. Meanwhile, a Security Cabinet meeting to discuss negotiations was cancelled Wednesday. The Times of Israel reports that there's currently no Israeli teams in Doha or Cairo working on an agreement, and there's currently no plans to send one.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is our number. Give us a call. We are Open Phones Radio. That means you control the airwaves. You can decide what we talk about. You can change the subject. We've been talking about the craziness thus far of 2025. A supposed terrorist attack in New Orleans, killing a lot of people, injuring a lot of people. And
I saw a headline saying there's 15 people dead, so who knows?
Yeah. And a supposed terrorist attack in Las Vegas, at least some people are saying that, with a Tesla Cybertruck in front of a Trump hotel, which is pretty interesting. But I wanted to remind you that Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project with a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. So, yeah, I was just kind of skimming through this article to see if there was anything else. They're talking a lot about They're making sure that everyone is safe. They talk a little bit about in videos of the lobby, loud blasts can be heard as the fire grows larger beyond the entrance to the hotel, which is embossed with the letter T for Trump. Mary Lascano Pagada, 43, who was on vacation in Las Vegas from San Antonio to celebrate the new year at the hotel, said she heard an explosion early Wednesday. Initially, she did not worry until she started seeing law enforcement officers responding. Paguda said she said that once she and her husband reached the lobby, they heard screaming and were told by hotel staff to get out and, quote, don't breathe the smoke, unquote. Oh, actually it says don't breathe the smoke, don't stay, unquote. She said they were not allowed to return to their rooms. Social media posts show smoke filling the air around the building. Other videos taken from nearby hotels show first responders appearing to race to the scene. Trump had tapped Musk to co-lead an advisory council, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, during his second administration, which aims to slash federal regulations and government spending. Musk, who is the world's richest person, contributed $277 million to back Trump's campaign and other GOP candidates, according to campaign finance records. So, I don't know. We'll wait. It is good to hear that already cell phone videos starting to come out. Social media posts are starting to go up about what happened, which may lead us to figure out what happened in that case. Again, it's a shame when anyone dies, and I feel for the family. I don't want anyone to do that, to have to meet their end too soon. But at the same instance, I'm gonna wait till I start seeing some more facts before I place any judgment on this. You know, and
I think that's important.
It's not even judgment; it's just what I think, what I actually believe.
I agree. I think it's important to have as much data as you can on the subject so that you can make an informed call or informed assessment of what's really going on here. I mean, all we know is that people are dead in New Orleans and there was an explosion at Trump Tower. Who knows what this all means?
Yeah, and if you want, for me to jump to conclusions about this, I would tend to think that spooks probably had something to do with it from, one flavor or another. A 3-letter agency, whether American or not.
Which one or both?
I don't know. I mean, there are 3-letter agencies outside of America also.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of them work with our 3-letter agencies. And,
right.
Yeah, and in this case where we're talking about what happened in New Orleans, which kind of looks really suspicious to me, and then we're now looking at something happening same day under very symbolic circumstances, I would say that.
Oh, for sure.
It's like if you were going to do a truck bomb, why would you choose the most expensive vehicle you could, and why would you drive it to a hotel owned by the president? This all seems really spot on, and
it might be a way to send a message to the incoming presidency is, we are not going to listen to you. We are going to do whatever we want, and we're going to attack your people.
Well, like I said before, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for information to come out. Like, maybe there was somebody in that crowd of people that got ran over that was, a target.
Yeah.
And if there was, that will come out eventually.
Eventually.
People are good at being detectives on the internet.
Yeah. Crazy thing. When you put, I hate the parallel, but, if you give 1 million monkeys 1 million typewriters, somebody will write Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I don't look at that derogatorily. I look at it as the combined intelligence of everyone online. And, it's like, when you think you need another set of eyeballs on this, In these examples, you have millions and millions and millions of eyeballs on everything, which is
and some
gives
people
me hope.
Some people have time to filter through all that too, because everybody's
Right.
got a different opinion, and everybody's eyeballs seem to see things differently. So some people are really good at compiling, like going through all of it and then compiling what makes the most sense.
Yeah. And you compare that to government, which as a percentage of the U.S. population, just the U.S. population, is minuscule.
Mhm.
You know, you can, as well, the FBI, it's like the FBI only has so many people working for it. It
Yeah.
doesn't have anything like the population of the internet.
And they
So-
don't have a really good incentive to do a fantastic job either.
No, they're government employees. They're bureaucrats. So what is there? There's no profit motive. They're not going to get paid more
No.
if they do more work, and unless they happen to get lots of overtime at your expense. But that's the thing. And you have all these people all around the world that their only motive is what really happened. What is the absolute truth? For a government bureaucrat, the quicker they can identify a plausible story or spoon feed the one they've been told to the public and then it's off their desk, then they're done.
Right.
And now there's nothing left but the cover up.
Sounds like a conspiracy.
Yeah, I just don't know. And that's why, you know, I think in anything, I mean, one of my favorite products Amazon did earlier on was what was it? Was it the Mechanical Turk? That isn't what they called it. What did they call it that?
I have no idea.
The something Turk, but this idea that, you know, you had a very simple task to do, and Amazon could assign it to people that were willing to work and do that, whether it was, you know, count how many words are in various types of advertising, but they would pay you a very small amount of money, like, you know, $1 for doing the small task. But Amazon was able to tackle some huge jobs using that model. You know, paying just a few people a little bit of money, or paying a whole lot of people a little bit of money, and they would end up getting the results.
Right.
That's the model that is the complete opposite of government. You know, if you pay people to do a job, you're telling them what it's worth. It's up to people to decide whether they want to take part in it, whether it was worth their time, and they get great results compared to a small bunch of bureaucrats that just need to do whatever they can to get it off their desk as fast as possible, or milk it forever because it's unsolvable.
Right.
You know, it's crazy. I like seeing those types of solutions coming from the free market. And what's interesting is, you know, in technology, nobody's really talked about this, but how much of government becomes obsolete? And I'm talking about bureaucrats. I'm not talking about, you know, supposedly elected officials. How much bureaucratic work can go away with AI? You know, when their job is literally to summarize the soybean reports, and that's all this guy does year after year.
I'm sure a lot of it could be
summarizes
eliminated by
soybean. And now you've got Elon and Vivek leading up an effort to look at this. And, you know, if you're looking at bureaucrat jobs, how many are going to be, how many could be, could go away? Because I'm not completely confident.
Well, almost all of them, but you're going to have a developer team, because that's the type of software that's ongoing and will need, you know, upgrades and whatever.
In some cases.
But, you know, a developer team is much less hard to pay.
I understand that.
But you also need, you need a planning team and game theory people.
No problem. If I have to hire a team of 20 developers to compensate for 150,000 bureaucrats, that's easy. That's an easy decision. What I'm saying now is that with the advent of AI and the fact that AI now writes code and has for some time, even the developer teams are going to be smaller. You know what I mean? So more bang for your buck. And I just don't know where I started with this thought in the back of my head is like, okay, an attack on Trump symbolically and an attack on Musk symbolically in the Las Vegas attack. Why aren't we talking about bureaucrats as potential suspects?
Yeah, I don't know how we got there, but we were talking sort of about the coincidences and how they stack up. And I've heard people say that they don't believe in coincidence at all. They don't think anything's a coincidence. And I don't know if I would go that far, but I think they're far more rare than people give them credit for. And when you find 2 or 3 in one sort of a situation, then you know, it starts to smell a little fishy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. This one smelled fishy as soon as I read the headline. And I think this one may be an interesting thing. I'm anxious to see what comes out of people's deep dives into both of these things. But I do think that there's a lot of money on the line for Musk and Trump talking about downsizing government and downsizing bureaucracies.
Yes, and a lot of people will lose their jobs, but that being said, they can go find jobs elsewhere. It's not like they're trapped in limbo if they lose their job with the government. They can move those skills and develop other skills in order to make themselves more profitable in the marketplace.
Well, that's quite an optimistic view, if I may say so. I think a lot of these people are pretty well next to worthless because they've just been coddled by a system that doesn't demand anything of them for their whole lives. And if they had to go out there and actually work for somebody that was like, a manager in the workplace like we know them, I think these people would fall apart.
Some might, but then there might be some who will take advantage of the situation and do something different with their lives. I don't know.
I like to think that. And I think there are some there that would, but I also agree with Stu absolutely that, and if you spent 25 years being a bureaucrat at some stupid job in some stupid agency, and they all have these.
One of these where you think it's just so important and really what you're doing is totally dumb.
I think they're all thinking, I just want to make it to retirement. I want that payout. I want to make that. Just let me get to retirement. And for the first time, probably in their careers, they are faced with a clear and present danger in the form of Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Donald Trump. I mean, is this something that could take down all my plans?
I don't know. I expect this to be far less of a thing than it sounds like it might be right now. I think it's mostly hype.
I will believe it when I see it.
Right, yeah.
That doesn't change how people will perceive it to be. And I read stories every day about the cataclysm that's coming, just the economics with all these thousands of government workers suddenly out of work. It'll throw us into a recession. People mostly on the left are talking about this as a coming apocalypse. It's nothing less than
so
that.
Now the left is all concerned about the economy when they weren't really concerned about the economy during Biden's administration.
Well, that was good bad economy. There's good bad economy and bad economy.
I see.
Trump is bad economics and Biden is good bad economics. Yeah.
Sure he is.
One of the most informative episodes of South Park that I can remember was one they did about the economy specifically, and they were treating it like it was a thing where a few of the characters were like mystics or prophets. They could interpret the will of the economy as this mystical thing. And
oh god.
And that's how I feel every time I hear people that are supposed to know about economics talking about the economic subject, because it's all far more simple than they're trying to make it anyways, and they just keep adding complexity to it so that regular people can't understand it and they sound more
Yeah, they want to make sure they keep the regular people from knowing how economics work, so they can keep you enslaved to their ideology.
Yeah, that's one reason. But like, even the people that are just regular economists, they really enjoy the fact that there's all this nomenclature and terminology that only they're privy to.
That is true. In mainstream economics, in Keynesian, in neo-Keynesian, in MMT, modern monetary theory, which I'm really thankful that more people, more economists across the board are going, I really can't believe we fell for that crap. It is so ridiculous. And meanwhile, you know, the Austrian economists have scoffed at both of them forever. Even now, they're starting to eat their own and trying to point stuff out. This is a headline that just kind of grabbed my eye. Government spending will be the cause of the next financial crisis. I'm sorry. To me, that's clickbait. I'm like, yeah, you're talking my language. This is a blog post from Daniel Lacalle. He's an economist. Crises are never caused by building excess exposure to high-risk assets. Crises can only happen when investors, government bodies, and households accumulate risk in assets where most believe there is little to no risk. Like if all your money went into, if everybody were investing in solid, low-risk assets, no problem, right? And everybody would make money and at very little risk. The 2008 crisis did not occur due to subprime mortgages. Those were the tips of the iceberg. Moreover, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, state-owned entities, guaranteed these subprime mortgage packages, which prompted numerous investors and banks to invest in them. Nobody can anticipate a crisis stemming from the potential decline in the NVIDIA share price or the value of Bitcoin. In fact, in the 2008 crisis, that had been created by subprime mortgages, it would have been absorbed and offset within less than 2 weeks. The only asset that can really create a crisis is the part the bank's balance sheets that is considered no risk, and as such requires no capital to finance their holdings, government bonds. When the price of sovereign bonds swiftly declines, the bank's balance sheet rapidly shrinks. Even if central banks conduct quantitative easing, the spillover effects on other assets lead to the abrupt destruction of the money base and lending. So I think that's an important take that it's not that people voluntarily put their money into high risk assets. It's that there is a complete lack of low risk assets. Anything in the stock market comes with some degree of risk.
Sure.
So if you buy, General Mills, okay, well, people are generally going to keep buying food. That's a fairly safe bet. And Warren Buffett kind of exemplifies this. He holds most of his money in things that are pretty low risk. He buys them when they're cheap, and then he sells them, or he holds on to them as they raise in value. He usually just keeps stuff around forever. But, oil companies and stuff like that, it's very long term. The government, and where most of its money goes that it takes from you and I, ends up going into backing government programs, and none of that stuff is stable. The idea of backing up the housing industry is a horrible investment. Yet when you're buying treasury bills, that's what you're buying into the dream of, a payoff from that. You're looking at the payoff from the government guaranteeing student loans to people that shouldn't have gone to college in the first place. That's a horrible investment.
Yeah.
Seems like a bad bet.
But, governments are willing to take the risk of investing horribly and, here we are, trillions of dollars into debt.
Yet and that's why I think there is so much craze about the opportunity to have institutional investors into things like Bitcoin. This is something that they can actually look at with a straight face and say, okay, this is likely to be a good investment, or it's Ethereum, or it's something like that, something else other than what they have to go to for their low risk. They have to keep low risk products on their balance sheet, which is government bonds, which are absolutely high risk.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to say that, but they are. And I thank this guy for pointing that out. In summary, a financial crisis serves as evidence of a state's insolvency. When the lowest risk assets abruptly lose value, the entire asset base of a commercial banks dissolve and fall faster than the ability to issue shares or bank bonds. In fact, banks are unable to increase capital and add debt due to the declining demand for sovereign bonds, as banks are perceived as a leveraged bet on government debt. And that's what people have to see, that this whole financial system is a house of cards, and the lowest level that's holding it all up is government debt, and it's just not gonna weather well. Elon knows that. Vivek knows that. Trump, I don't know if he knows anything. I really don't.
I don't either, but
I think he'll listen to people who make a good argument sometimes.
I'm hopeful for this next go around with Trump. I'm hoping he makes wiser decisions, but we'll see.
We'll see.
I'd like to see fractional reserve lending done away with altogether.
Just outlawed.
But
it would be simple.
But you're never going to get that back, I don't think. And I don't have quite as high hopes for Bitcoin as some people do, because I think they'll just do the same thing. They'll just fractional reserve lend it.
Well, when I say Bitcoin, I say that because I've had the longest exposure to it, but I'm talking crypto in general. I don't care which crypto it is, whichever rises to the top and shows it's stable, that's a good one. 603-283-6160 is the number to call to get on the air and tell us what's on your mind. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
To be free is to be clear-headed.
I do encourage people.
Somebody gets down and smokes a joint and gets high. They sit on the couch and they turn into a blob.
Yeah, well, I don't think you know much about people that smoke pot, Christy.
Right. Yeah, Christy.
They procrastinate. That's what you guys were talking about on your show tonight.
Cliche.
About legalizing
then
it.
Christy, then what I can say then is the people that don't smoke pot make sweeping generalizations, because you just did. It seems like the vast majority of humans use some kind of substance throughout their day or week.
Not Christy. She doesn't.
Well,
what a sad state of affairs.
Do you have a cup of coffee in the morning, Christy?
And at this time in our history, if that's
we've always done it. Christy, it's been done throughout humans. People, how many people do you know, Christy, that can't function without a cup of coffee?
Well, you have to have a piece of bread to live, to survive.
We're not talking about food.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The FBI says it believes the suspect in the New Orleans New Year's attack wasn't acting alone before he plowed through a crowd of revelers, killing at least 10 people. It also revealed that the man, a former member of the U.S. military, had an Islamic State flag tied to the back of his pickup truck. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
The FBI believes Shamsuddin Jabbar was not solely responsible for the attack on New Year's morning, and it has appealed to the public for new information about him. The 42-year-old Army veteran drove a white pickup truck around bollards and through a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at 3:15 in the morning local time, before coming to a stop and exchanging gunfire with police, where he was killed. Officials found weapons and explosive devices in the pickup truck, as well as more explosives in the French Quarter, the area where the attack took place. The major college football game known as the Sugar Bowl was due to be held in New Orleans on Wednesday night, but it's now been postponed by 24 hours.
Police in Las Vegas are investigating a vehicle explosion outside the city's Trump Towers hotel complex. Videos circulating online show a Tesla Cybertruck exploding in front of the hotel entrance. According to media reports, the explosion happened after the vehicle pulled into the valet area of the hotel. Deputy Chief of the Clark County Fire Department, Thomas Touchstone, says it was an electric vehicle that caught on fire and that the driver has been killed.
There were 7 minor injuries, 2 of which were transported to UMC, again for minor injuries, and there is 1 fatality within the Cybertruck.
There's no information yet on what caused the fire. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is a close ally of Tesla owner Elon Musk, and the 2 men spent New Year's together at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Hopes of a ceasefire being close in Gaza appear to be fading, with a new report saying mediators haven't been able to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate in recent days. FSN's Trent Murray is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Despite earlier hopes that a deal could be close, the Wall Street Journal reports that Israel and Hamas have hit an impasse in their negotiations, and there's no immediate signs the two sides could be about to agree to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Citing sources close to the negotiations, the report suggests a proposed deal which would have centered around a 60-day ceasefire in exchange for 30 Israeli hostages being returned has now been walked back by both sides. Meanwhile, a Security Cabinet meeting to discuss negotiations was cancelled Wednesday. The Times of Israel reports that there's currently no Israeli teams in Doha or Cairo working on an agreement, and there's currently no plans to send one.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, what should happen to Asma al-Assad, the wife of fallen Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad? She's in Russia, where she and her husband have been offered asylum. It's reported that she is suffering from leukemia, doesn't want to stay in Russia, and doesn't want to stay with her husband. She's a British citizen, born in the UK, with the right to live in Britain if she chooses. But should Britain allow that to happen? Sam Kiley is World Affairs Editor of The Independent.
It's reported out of the Russian media that actually their assets there have been frozen, which is no great surprise. I mean, the family's believed to own about 18 significant properties in Moscow, to have invested some $250 million and to have fled there with over $1 billion in gold and cash. So if that is true and it has been frozen, then in a sense they've paid their rent forward to the Putin regime for some time. They may be looking forward to some pocket money. I think that the issue for Asma would be, even if she were able to return to the UK, who would pay for her medical care? We don't know exactly what her medical condition is, but there are sort of strong rumours, which is as good as you get out of Moscow very often, that she has leukemia, members of her family being quoted as saying she's got a 50-50 chance of survival, and that she wants to come back to the UK. There would be some ethical decisions there.
And the British government has broad powers to strip her of citizenship if that move is considered conducive to the public good. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The FBI says it believes the suspect in the New Orleans New Year's attack wasn't acting alone. Police in Las Vegas are investigating a vehicle explosion outside the city's Trump Towers hotel complex. And hopes of a ceasefire in Gaza appear to be fading, with a new report saying mediators haven't been able to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate in recent days. That is the latest feature story news. Ira.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Researchers at the University of Washington report that they have successfully trained 7-year-old chimpanzee Makoko to do all of the tasks necessary to conduct a 3-year study on primates. According to the scientists, Makoko has efficiently learned to turn in thorough analyses of behavior in chimpanzees, fill out all of the necessary paperwork to ensure compliance with the Animal Welfare Act, and even apply for supplemental grant funding from the National Institutes of Health. Sources within your office reported today that the guy on the 3rd floor with 2 computer screens on his desk is not f***ing around. Co-workers said that the man, currently working with at least 3 programs open on each screen, was absolutely tearing it up, with sources adding that watching the man run a group video chat while dragging 2 separate Google documents to his second screen was like something out of f***ing Minority Report or something.
Jesus, he's just dragging things from one screen to the other like it's nothing. He's going balls to the wall over there. Christ, man, I don't think he's blinked in 3 minutes.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Thank you for joining us for hour number 2 of our show this evening. We do 3 hours every Wednesday, with this Wednesday possibly being the last one we do for a while. I think we're going to be switching schedules a bit next week, or maybe it'll be the end of this. I don't know. But at some point, you may hear something out of Free Talk Live to that effect. In studio tonight, it's Chris,
Stu,
and Riley.
And we spent the first hour just, recapping all of 2025's major news stories. Not all of them, but the 2 ones that caught our eye was the supposed terrorist attack in New Orleans. I guess the only thing I would say is we want to hear more about this before anybody makes any decisions. And then a second terrorist attack, which involved a Cybertruck exploding in front of the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas a few hours later, and we find out both rented from the same company. I don't know if that means anything, but that's what we are talking about. And we've got a couple calls, so we are going to go immediately to one unscreened caller. Unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live.
You know, economics wasn't meant to be simplified to the voodoo of
Don't tell me what to do.
Because it leads to gullible hippies to false conclusions and contradictions. Like subjective value and praxeology. That's why people like Riley contradict themselves. He on one hand, he's advocating for more data for a more informed citizen, but on the other hand, he's defending privacy. You think those terrorist acts could happen if there was no privacy? In real economics, you'd realize privacy is the main cause of externalities, the bad things that cause society to be inefficient. You know that, right, Riley?
Interesting.
Skeeter, I hear you call every show, and it seems like you have a bunch of word salad.
Well, it's basically whatever we say, he just immediately disagrees with it. He is a contrarian.
No, I don't.
So no more surprise birthday parties. Is that what you're... Is that what you want, Skeeter?
The reason why I'm so disagreeable with you guys is because you keep using libertarianism and the Austrian school as a methodology to analyze what's true. That's why you keep spouting false. You keep making false conclusions. Like the whole idea of privacy is the problem. It's not a cure to anything.
We never talked about privacy in context of unsustainable government growth and then being sold that to banks, which are supposed to be trustworthy, as their best investment.
And how do you suggest we eradicate privacy? Everybody needs to go get their neuroplant brain chip so that they can broadcast every single thought they ever have?
Sort of.
Oh.
First, you implement.
So no more surprise birthday parties, no more surprise gifts of any kind, no more. You know, secrets can be used for good things as well.
No, it's not worth the cost.
Oh,
any
it's
potential
not worth the
benefit
cost.
you can think of with surprise gifts is not worth the cost. It's absolutely not worth the cost. Are surprise gifts worth people dying in terrorist attacks, or people stealing from you, or fraud?
Wow, what a nonsense!
Or even, you know what? You know what even enables government? It's privacy.
Exactly.
The eradication
Open
of
up
privacy.
all of government. No
if
more
you
secrecy
implement-
from
no,
the government.
no.
I'm fine with that.
What enables government is
No,
obedience.
True. Obedience definitely enables government to do horrendous acts.
Well, it's from people using bad economics, just like you guys with Austrian economics. You know, the future of economics
So please,
is evolutionary.
real
economics.
quickly,
You guys realize that,
what
right?
is the true
in that
system
article
of
they-
economics?
Hold on.
No.
Evolutionary economics from classical economics. We can totally bypass Austrian economics to evolutionary economics.
So
That's
which
the true
the
future.
only person
in
I've
that
ever
article-
heard talk about
in
this
that
is
article-
you.
No, it's a very new branch. It's a very new branch.
Tell
that
me
people
about
are sort of. I'm creating it. No,
Okay, here's a specific question about it. For example, then do you subscribe to the thought of sound money, or do you like this liquid kind of
Yes.
flimsy money?
Yes, guess
what?
I could get in. I could spend a whole hour just delving into ideal money.
Well, you can't.
What's ideal though? Is it
ideal?
Is it shifty and like you
money
like
is money with no privacy?
Is it a sound money, or is it
Anyways,
fractional?
Yes, it's the most. It's evolutionary stable. Like I hear
Evolutionary stable.
real economic terms like payoff. No, then you can ask for clarification instead of saying word salad or something. I hear Chris using real economic terms embedded in these articles he's reading. Things like payoff, which is real value, which is related to game theory. A stability, that's another real economic term in evolutionary game theory. That's true morality. Stability is the essence of true morality. What behavior is sustainable throughout time, right?
Okay.
And we want to look for the most. If we're talking about money, we want to see what the objective qualities of money, the objective qualities of an ideal money is.
Good. So can you agree with me that the U.S.
ideal-
dollar
the
does not
primary-
represent any of these ideals?
No, because it has too much privacy, and neither does Bitcoin.
Okay, well, we weren't talking
That's
about
my point.
Bitcoin,
If
but
you-
dude,
if you let me talk.
I would, but I've got other callers on the line too.
Doesn't represent
I appreciate that, but you need to get to your points a little quicker, dude. Happy New Year.
Well, you keep interrupting me. You keep
I
interrupting
know.
me.
I'm
Stupid
sorry,
question.
but I've got calls I've got to get to, man.
answers.
Thank you.
No, they're idiots. They're idiots. Just
And we're going to Jet. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live. I'm sorry that Skeeter called you an idiot. We didn't say that. We didn't believe that, but that's Skeeter.
Yeah, well, yeah, he doesn't know. We don't want to talk more about that. But as I was listening and heard you talk about the useless function of bureaucrats in government, I personally was the manager of operations over the full state computer systems on a particular state. And underneath that, each agency had its own partition of, in quotes, services. Agencies like the court system or the DMV or the social systems and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so I had a firsthand view at all the useless nature of things and all the waste that was going on and all that. That's one of the reasons I kind of moved on to other things, became my own consultant and all. But I'm thinking that, when you think about it, each state has its own, all kinds of things. First of all, you can think of the Capitol, with the gold plate on its dome. Each one of these has a big old building and a lot of times they separate the legislature into different buildings, and they make this big presentation about itself. It doesn't matter how big the state is, whether it's like Rhode Island or whether it's Alaska. They still have all this I don't know, this just demonstration of power and
wealth and control.
And control. Think about it. I mean, they have to have a state flag, a state bird, their own colors, their own police force versus local sheriffs and local police. They have all the laws. All the laws. You'll find in many states they're different enough that you can actually take advantage of it.
Sure. But some people are going to listen to this and go, you're right. Jet is absolutely right. They have all these things. All of them have gilded Capitol buildings, and they have all these different divisions. Maybe we should just, lump them all together and put them all in Washington. That would be much more efficient, right, Stu?
Sure.
Well,
if we just had one central one, we'd only need one of each of these things. So why not do that?
Yeah, I mean, just the DMV bugs me. The whole idea that somehow there's a reason we have to change up the numbers on the license plate every year. I mean, each vehicle, for example, having its own vehicle identification number, and you could put some type of representation of that. If nothing more, then how about a QR code? Just assigned to your car that people could look up. But anyway, I'm calling in, of course, on the first day of what we call the tax terrorism season. It lasts up until April 15th, typically. And I just want to pass on that everybody just kind of relax about this thing, because the only people that the IRS would ever go after are those people who have assets to recover, or if you're making some kind of noise like I am right now.
This is true.
About how evil and well, probably unconstitutional, but will never be ruled that this agency is. I just think it's so funny. I ask people all the time, why do you pay taxes? Why do you do this thing? I mean, think about it. Taxes from your income, the fact that this is something that you have to do. You have to do this to survive. So why are you giving a portion of your labor, your effort, and energy to these other strangers? I mean, why are you doing that? I mean, I like to brag that I haven't participated for about 40 years now. But
thank you for your service on that.
Right.
Yeah. And
I've heard recently people still use the excuse of who's going to build the roads, though.
Well, yeah, of course. It's insane to me that this was one of the things that supposedly the founding fathers felt was so important never to have, that they put in the little bit about there shall be no poll tax, no tax just on being a person. You can't tax everyone for giving up part of your income. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then 100 years later, 100 and some years later, they modified the Constitution. They modified the rules for government to allow them to do that. And
well, that's because the definitions changed. Also, the definition of what is income, that kind of thing. It all changed. But I wanted to also mention real quick that you were talking about the cryptocurrency thing and how volatile it is, and it would be nice if it were more stable. Well, I'm a trader, so I actually benefit from the volatility.
Sure.
When it drops off into the basket like it has here recently, that's when you pick some up. It goes up to a stupid number. That's when you unload a little.
Yeah.
It's just riding the wave is actually the thing. I'm creating an automated version of me to do the trading to see how that goes.
Well, best of luck.
But yeah,
trading
government is useless.
Yeah, I found out that I'm not a good day trader, so I'll never do it again. I made a little bit of money doing it, but I realized how much time and effort I would have to put into it, and it wasn't worth the time or the effort. It was easier to pay someone else to do it. Jet, thank you so much for the call. Yeah. We're going to Snowman. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hello, guys. Good show again tonight.
I was careful not to call you by your wife's name. I think that was a mistake I made
Camillo,
last
you can
time.
call me Camillo.
Okay, Camillo.
Snowman's cool. That's
okay,
all right.
Good.
It seems to me, I wasn't going to call. I like listening to you, but that Skeeter dude there, I had to. It seems to me that one of the reasons that libertarians have a problem in communicating about politics with non-libertarians is that politics, hopefully you can agree with me, it's essentially the competition of ideas about government. It's your idea about the right to, the correct form of government, what's just, what's unjust, what the laws ought to be, etc., versus mine. You and I, nobody agrees. I haven't found any people that agree 100%, but we're a lot closer, you and I, and the rest of you guys, than we are with Skeeter. And we just don't share a common understanding of government. If you asked, if you're having a competition of ideas about government, and you don't share a common understanding of the term government, like we're going to say, I would anyway, if you ask me, and you're going to disagree with me or not, that government is an agency of coercion, or the agency with the monopoly on the initiation of violence or force or whatever. There's many different ways of putting it. It's the opposite of freedom, actually. It's the opposite of...
it is the opposite of freedom.
Respects.
And Mark Passio says that government is slavery, and I like that as a definition.
Yes, unless you get into the Jeffersonian form, where it's derived from the consent of the governed, which we don't have. But anyway, we won't get into that. But Skeeter, if you would ask him to define government, you would get some weird thing. I don't know what it would be. I don't know what image would come to his mind first. Maybe some buildings or some people on TV or something. But government is so you're never going to have fun trying to talk politics with non-libertarians, and that's the first thing I'd do with them is I'd ask them to define government and let them know that this is what we mean when we're talking politics and talking about government. This is how we understand it, and if you don't understand that, then please make it clear as to why, and we can laugh about that for a while.
So you bring up an interesting point, and I've done this with Skeeter on occasion. It's hard to avoid because he calls every time I'm ever on the air. But when he says something, I believe it was Jet who suggested this, or at least that's the instance I remember. So when he starts going off with word salad, just ask him to define what he's talking about. And every time I tried that, he couldn't define what he was talking about.
And if you get him get him to give a definition of any given thing, he'll go ahead and contradict it 5 seconds later.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's not really there. That wasn't really, I was going to call you. I wanted to read one thing and let you guys, again, I think you guys get the greatest show around, and I'm glad, I heard you say recently that you weren't going to be on Wednesday nights, so I just happened to tune in tonight. I hope this continues, or you continue on Wednesday night.
We'll be on some night. I'm sure you'll hear all our voices at some point.
We'll be on weekends at least.
You guys were talking about money earlier, and I just wanted to read this one quote. Ever since I talked to you guys last time about the stinking, rotten, hideous money system that under which we are enslaved. But a guy by the name of Robert Hemphill, who was a Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta mucky muck at one time, some years ago, made the statement, if all bank loans were paid, no one would have a bank deposit and there would not be $1 of currency or coin in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit. We are absolutely without a permanent money system. When one gets a complete grasp upon the picture, the tragic absurdity of our hopeless position is almost incredible. But there it is.
That's it.
Yet, the banking problem is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. And last time when I called, later on in the evening, I was listening, and Dave from New Mexico called in, and he asked, what can we do about it? What should we do about it? And to me, it's like the first thing you got to do is get people to understand it and to understand how money is created and who's doing it. And to me, that's the first place you start. You can't have a society that is absolutely, and I know this I ask people all the time, who creates our money and how do they do it? And man, it's from people who ought to know better, people who are public officials. They are absolutely clueless. They're still back in the government prints the money thing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And until you have a knowledgeable electorate, to me, that was what I thought that the Libertarian Party was supposed to be about. Not that we were ever going to, do any, getting people into high office, especially maybe some lower offices, but just the ability to educate people and to. But I don't even hear. I don't hear libertarians. Most all you guys really are the very few libertarians, among the very few libertarians I've ever heard, anybody, nobody talks about it, but you guys,
right.
Very few I've heard that even discuss this issue at all, which is, you are to be commended for.
Well,
I don't know.
We recognize the importance of it. And when I first kind of woke up, and started looking into what is our money worth. And I thank Ron Paul for that. Or where does it come from and how does it actually work? Because most people going through their day-to-day lives just have no interest in that at all. But when you do understand it, when you do understand that we have a system that's based only on debt and only through fractional reserve banking does money grow, and if the government buys or borrows daily because they run constant deficits, the money supply is going to grow to unsustainable levels, and everybody's going to experience inflation and all these other things. Until you get that, people don't.
This problem's way bigger than that too, because for me, it was kind of a hard thing to get my mind around how world markets kind of all collapse at once, but I heard a pretty good explanation about it. And it's something like U.S. borrows money, and then they put that debt on the market, which is bought up by other, usually countries or large investment bankers, and then that debt is added to their asset side, and it's loaned out up to, I forgot what it was, 900 times or something ridiculous.
It used to be
It's never been audited, honestly, so I wouldn't even make that statement.
Yeah.
But
you're
they
right.
have a word for that. It's called rehypothecation.
Yes.
And they do it with stocks, they do it with money, they do it with government debt, and when it all comes to call, it's going to be bad.
It's going to be bad. Hey, Snowman, thank you so much for the call. 603-283-6160 is the number to call. We've been talking money recently. I guess we did with Skeeter, maybe. Who knows what we were talking about?
I think the word was used.
I think it was. This is Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The FBI says it believes the suspect in the New Orleans New Year's attack wasn't acting alone before he plowed through a crowd of revelers, killing at least 10 people. It also revealed that the man, a former member of the U.S. military, had an Islamic State flag tied to the back of his pickup truck. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
The FBI believes Shamsuddin Jabbar was not solely responsible for the attack on New Year's morning, and it has appealed to the public for new information about him. The 42-year-old Army veteran drove a white pickup truck around bollards and through a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at 3:15 in the morning local time, before coming to a stop and exchanging gunfire with police, where he was killed. Officials found weapons and explosive devices in the pickup truck, as well as more explosives in the French Quarter, the area where the attack took place. The major college football game known as the Sugar Bowl was due to be held in New Orleans on Wednesday night, but it's now been postponed by 24 hours.
Police in Las Vegas are investigating a vehicle explosion outside the city's Trump Towers hotel complex. Videos circulating online show a Tesla Cybertruck exploding in front of the hotel entrance. According to media reports, the explosion happened after the vehicle pulled into the valet area of the hotel. Deputy Chief of the Clark County Fire Department, Thomas Touchstone, says it was an electric vehicle that caught on fire and that the driver has been killed.
There were 7 minor injuries, 2 of which were transported to UMC, again for minor injuries, and there is 1 fatality within the Cybertruck.
There's no information yet on what caused the fire. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is a close ally of Tesla owner Elon Musk, and the two men spent New Year's together at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Hopes of a ceasefire being close in Gaza appear to be fading, with a new report saying mediators haven't been able to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate in recent days. FSN's Trent Murray is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Despite earlier hopes that a deal could be close, the Wall Street Journal reports that Israel and Hamas have hit an impasse in their negotiations, and there's no immediate signs the two sides could be about to agree to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Citing sources close to the negotiations, the report suggests a proposed deal which would have centered around a 60-day ceasefire in exchange for 30 Israeli hostages being returned has now been walked back by both sides. Meanwhile, a Security Cabinet meeting to discuss negotiations was cancelled Wednesday. The Times of Israel reports that there's currently no Israeli teams in Doha or Cairo working on an agreement, and there's currently no plans to send one.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is the number to call because, hey, it's open phones radio. The way it used to be, where you could just call up any radio station and talk about, I don't even know if anybody ever did that other than us, but we do it here.
Well, maybe some local shows have done it. Like, I remember growing up when I listened to talk radio, the local shows were willing to do open lines on a day, and
right,
people could call about anything. But
sometimes you could get through on love lines a long time ago, stuff like that. But,
and talk economics.
Yeah, but good luck getting through on any kind of a serious talk radio show.
Good luck getting through on Sean Hannity or Glenn Beck.
Yeah,
but you can get through here. Give us a call.
Yeah, we've got all our lines are open, but I wanted to remind you that not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a lesson that too many people have learned the hard way. It's always best to get your crypto into a wallet that you control, but not all wallets are equal. Many of our hosts have been using Edge for years to manage their crypto, and there just aren't many wallets to compare. Featuring a unique login system, it makes it easier for you to access your crypto from multiple devices. Edge is designed to be user-friendly. In a space that can be notoriously difficult for non-tech people, Edge is a valuable tool for novices and experts alike. You can learn more at edge.app, which features a link at the top for those who wish to learn more about crypto and wallets. And thank you to Edge for sponsoring Free Talk Live. Again, to learn more, visit edge.app. That's edge.app. In studio, it is Chris,
Stu,
and Riley.
And we've been kind of all over the board. It was refreshing to get a bunch of calls in a row. That took up a whole segment.
It did.
I should say Skeeter took up most of it. No, he didn't take. He got cut off fairly soon.
Calls are the best part of this show.
It is the best part of the show.
Well, I will say that sometimes Skeeter can be really entertaining, especially when he does his rants about economics and evolutionary capitalism.
The last week we gave him 1 minute and then didn't address a single thing that he said. It was really good.
Yeah, I don't know. He likes to be a troublemaker. He likes to be adversarial. Anything we say, he will always disagree with, and that's Skeeter. So you know what you get. You know, he's always going to be consistent.
Almost like he's got some other motive.
It is like he almost has something, but he just never gets to that point where he actually addresses it. So this was a story that Riley brought in that I thought was interesting, and I just had to double check the dates, and we'll find out more as we get into this. But this was posted a couple hours ago. Associated Press, PlayStations for guns are offered up in New Orleans.
Did I give you a gun for your old PlayStation?
That would be a hell of a deal.
That would be a different trade. But
I got a PS3. I don't play it anymore, so what the heck? We'll get into this a little bit. And this was December 31st, so they announced this program yesterday on New Year's Eve, New Orleans, AP. Dozens of cars lined up outside a New Orleans church parking lot this week as residents flocked to exchange firearms for video game consoles throughout city-supported gun buyback initiatives meant to improve public safety as Louisiana loosens gun ownership laws.
Is that why we're having mass car attacks now? Is because people are getting rid of the guns?
Well, I mean, yeah, the idea that if we just get all these guns off the street, things will magically become safer, and then that night they find an attack from a guy with a car. Maybe they'll next try car buyback programs.
Yeah, maybe. Well, they kind of did with the Cash for Clunkers. That's sort of what that was, actually.
Letitia Clanton, 50, waited all morning Tuesday for the opportunity. While she had a permit to carry concealed handgun that she had owned for the past decade, she also has 8 young grandchildren running around her home. Clanton chose to swap her weapon for a PlayStation 5 worth about $500.
Wow.
Wow, pretty good.
I know.
With all the grandkids and all the violence that's going on, it's time to get it off the street, Clanton said. As for the PlayStation...
To get what off the street? The children or the...
The violence, Stu. They're trying to get the violence off the street.
Yeah.
Not realizing that guns don't cause violence in the first place.
What kind of a broom do you use for that? Or is it like a vacuum? Or how do you clean up violence?
Good question.
Doesn't your vacuum cleaner have a violence attachment? I know mine does.
Maybe. Maybe Milwaukee makes an attachment.
Quote, it's going to be for all of them to share when they come to the house, unquote. Mrs. Clanton, with all due respect, asking 8 kids to share a PlayStation is going to create more violence in your home then you're ever going to get off the street.
Sure.
Good point.
Man, 8 kids fighting over a PlayStation. Over the course of 2 hours, city police officers received and dismantled 32 revolvers, shotguns, and semi-automatics, all traded in with no questions asked as long as the guns were functional. In all, the city collected 94 guns through these buybacks over the last 6 months, all involving swaps for gaming devices.
Only 94 guns? That's not a lot, honestly.
94 times 500. I don't have a calculator in front of me. Hold on. Now my phone wants me to unlock. Dang it. That's a whole lot of money. I want to see how much this came to.
47 or 48,000, I think. Unless I'm doing that wrong.
Well, I'm just saying, for $500, you can definitely buy a firearm.
Yeah, you could easily.
Times
1,000 times every 2.
Yeah, $47,000. They spent $47,000 to get these 32. No, it's a total of 94 mix of guns off the street, and they gave away $47,000 worth of PlayStations.
I wonder if any of those were not real guns, or if they were just somebody hurried and printed one on their Ghost Gunner.
Yeah, I mean, those are the best stories.
That would be hilarious if somebody did that.
They're like, if it'll fire, it's a gun. So, people were assembling, parts from hardware stores into what technically fired a projectile of some kind. We're going to go to the phones where we got Chuck in Washington. Chuck, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, that whole thing reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons where they had the monkey paw and they wished all the guns would go away, and then the aliens saw that, and then they said, now's the time to attack, until they started getting chased with a board with a nail in it.
That's too good.
Did you hear? I don't believe this guy was ISIS in Louisiana, by the way, in New Orleans. I don't believe that for a second. Because, see, Donald Trump, who's a man of integrity and says exactly what he means, claimed that he destroyed ISIS. So how could this have happened if he destroyed ISIS?
Point. That is a good point.
He's a man of integrity.
Right. Yeah, of course. Good point.
Yeah, ISIS is no more. Except, well, it could be a splinter group that just reformed. I mean, I'm hearing a lot about what's going on in Syria, how they are... What is it, HSD or something like that? The group that took control was originally an Al-Qaeda offshoot, so the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he left, so I was hoping he would have some response to that. Yeah,
I also noted his sarcasm. Donald Trump, a man of integrity, said... ISIS is no more. Well, here we are.
Yeah. People are going to be angry with the U.S. as long as we continue to prop up governments around the globe. And it's not that some of these governments that we propped up, some of them are better governments than the alternative in some place. In the end, it's still government. So I understand them being angry at us for propping up any government. And I understand the American people being really tired of shipping their money to prop up governments.
I just hope the rest of the world isn't too mad at me for it, because I'm really trying not to enable those guys.
Doing our best here. But again, here we are living in a country that I think the U.S. has the biggest target on its back for any foreign group that
seems
is
like
upset.
That ought to. Yeah, it really seems like it ought to. It's been, doing the merchant marine thing. What was the guy's name that wrote that? The most decorated Marine in history, Smedley Butler.
Smedley Butler.
Yeah, he'll tell you all about how he's been running a racket for international trade, and if you want to look into it further, you can find out how they also do it for things like drugs and guns.
Yeah, I heard something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do that too.
And a lot of that is their motivations for doing things like, political coups, where they just switch out one leader and put in their installed puppet, and it's always obvious when they do it, and everybody knows. And they call them color revolutions or something, but everybody knows what that is.
Yeah. We're going to try to finish out this New Orleans story. A local nonprofit, Unchained Realities, we're reading from an AP story about how New Orleans, leading up to New Year's, he had successfully spent $47,000 to give people PlayStation 5s in exchange for their firearms at a cost of an estimated $47,000. Local nonprofit Unchained Realities organized the exchanges as part of NOLA Grown gaming system that engages young people in the city with gaming. Why do you need a nonprofit to engage children with games? I don't get that, but that's all right.
NGOs are all the new craze, man.
There you go. The nonprofit established 2 centers for youth. Oh, that's it. They got government money to build 2 new centers for youth to, quote, build skills and open up pathways to the gaming world, unquote.
Yep, fascism can look like that too.
Whether as a competitive player or through game development, graphic design, and coding. A 3rd center is in the works. They're going to get a 3rd building out of this, and it'll only cost them $47,000 in giveaways. Quote, in my inbox is filled with people saying they want to do this, and I just felt a necessity to go out and try to raise some more money, unquote, said J.D. Carrere, co-director of the gaming program. Tuesday's event was paid for mainly through donations from 2 private businesses. Can I guess which ones? GameStop and anybody who sells video games. Carrere said the buybacks came in response to Louisiana's more relaxed gun ownership restrictions and harsher sentencing for violent crimes. Shortly after taking office in 2024, Republican Governor Jeff Landry pushed a tough-on-crime agenda through the GOP-dominated legislature. The laws passed included mandating 17-year-olds to be charged as adults and required anyone convicted of a crime to serve 85% of their sentence before they can be released. So I'm trying to understand the response. Why are you buying back guns if you're worried that more 17-year-olds will be charged with crimes? I don't
get it either. I mean, guns aren't going to stop crime. Well, actually, guns will stop crimes better than governments will. I mean, but governments are notorious about claiming they're tough on crime when in reality they're going to create more victims of they're going to create more criminals.
Yeah. Another law which went into effect in August allows most people 18 years and older to carry a concealed weapon without a government permit. Why would people ever need a permit to carry concealed? It boggles the mind, but that was a change that happened in Louisiana. A firearms training course or getting their fingerprints taken, all previous legal requirements. Landry's office did not respond to a request for comment. New Orleans has historically had one of the nation's highest homicide rates, and city officials have often clashed with the rest of conservative Louisiana over how to handle violent crime. However, murders and other non-fatal shootings have decreased significantly in the past 2 years, according to the New Orleans Police Department. Do gun buybacks work? There's been hundreds of gun buybacks throughout the country, but quantitative studies such as a 2021 report from the National Bureau of Economic Research have not indicated that they do much to noticeably reduce violent crime. Well, thank you, AP, for actually including a statistic that didn't make the point you were trying to make. No, gun buybacks have very little effect on the amount of violent crime because it has nothing to do with the gun. It has to do with violent people who want to take people and make victims out of them.
Exactly.
Those are criminals.
People need to understand that violent people are going to exist, and they'll use swords, they'll use spears, they'll use bows and arrows, they'll use rocks, they'll use whatever they have to hand.
Bare hands. Yeah.
Yep. And when they do these buybacks, they get the guns from old ladies who no longer feel like they should have it around, like you cited from the story.
Yeah.
They don't get, a hardcore thuggish gangster coming up and dropping off a gun that's got 19 bodies on it, or nobody's going to do that.
Of course not. Critics say buybacks only collect a fraction of the guns on the street, failing to reach the people most likely to commit crimes and come with lots of loopholes. Well, no kidding. During a statewide gun buyback in New York in 2022, a man claimed $21,000 in gift cards by mass-producing 3D printed guns.
Yep. I heard about that one. I
love it. I love it.
Cheers to that guy.
Thank you for your service. Community leaders in New Orleans say the police station swap should be seen not as a one-off, but as part of a broader community engagement strategy that also raised awareness and connects families with city-supported gaming programs for their kids.
Did Sarah from New Mexico help with this one?
You would think. Quote, to simply take guns away is not enough, unquote, Carrere said. I think it's replacing it with opportunity is really what we're doing, unquote. Okay. We're going to go to the phones. We have the aforementioned Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year. I'm so happy that you guys are live, because I think the last 2 days that it was like a recording.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you guys are back on.
Me too. We're short-staffed around here. Do you want to come join us, Sarah?
It's okay. I think I'm a little bit too far away to New Mexico to New Hampshire. You know?
Right.
So, and then I like our weather today too. It's like very warm. So it's like October weather.
It was 50 here today. Not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Did you get that warm down here? Man. Yep. I live at too high in altitude.
Yeah, we're 7 miles up from the sea level, so technically we're like short. Like if you were to take a cubic foot of air from the sea level, we're actually short like 1/4, 25% less oxygen.
Huh.
So yeah, that's what. And it sometimes sometimes when I moved here, I felt like I was lacking half of the oxygen, and I was like, it's only 1/4 the oxygen from the sea level, and when you first come here, it feels like they took half of the air away. So
it can feel that way, but people adapt.
I kind of like the high deserts.
Yeah,
I've been to Albuquerque. I don't mind it. I think it's a nice geography. The city's got some problems for sure.
Yeah, I have no idea, but the Texas, they found the cartel and they told them all to go to New Mexico. So and I believe it. I heard that. It's like, we don't want you guys here. Just go to New Mexico and you can do your thing.
Problem solved.
And so I think
for Texas.
So I mean, I believe it because somebody announced that. Somebody talked about it. It was like, well, that's kind of like true. Because we have 97 homicides, and one of the past sheriff, Darren White, was saying, well, most of these were caused by the cartels. Cartels were behind all of these dope-dealing homicides.
Have they tried giving the cartel PlayStation 5s? That's what Louisiana did. They just give everybody a PlayStation 5 and they get a gun back. Have they tried anything like that in Albuquerque?
Well, they had to buy the gun back and make it into plows. But for some reason, they're like a big setup here for their dope dealing. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to do drugs and a lot of dope dealing, a lot of people that are using drugs.
How do you think we should solve this, Sarah?
I have no idea why that is so true here in New Mexico. Is it like the poverty and they're so miserable? That
it's government incentivizing lazy people.
Yeah, my guess would be that your local government is just corrupt and was approached by the correct individual, and they signed a deal. Now you got a headquarters there. It's kind of what happened to Mena, Arkansas under Bill Clinton. You look that one up. They even made a movie about that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
corrupt government, corrupt local government is my guess.
Cartels really can't exist without purchasing some amount of government protection. Otherwise, governments and DEA is always there. If Texas was successful in making Texas unappealing to traffickers coming through there, they got to come through somewhere. They just look at a map and go, okay, what's the next border state? Okay, it's New Mexico. We'll try there. And if they run into a lot of resistance, like a lot of police influence, they can always just try to bribe local police officials, local government officials, and say, take the heat off and we can throw, say, a couple million your way every year. And if you have corrupt government, they will take that deal. So maybe that's where you ought to look.
Yeah, you know what? And then New Mexico has always been notorious for corrupt government. Mm-hmm. And they have always had many proofs of embezzlement, too. A lot of embezzling going on.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
We get so... And then you are right. Why is it that the cartels could set up shop here? I mean, why is it that they're not afraid of doing their things here unless somebody's being bought out or paid off, right?
Yes, do look into that. I mean, it's a common story and it's sad.
Well, it's been going on for a long time too. The police chief he was police chief for a long time in Salt Lake, in Salt Lake City, Utah. Skousen was the guy's name, and he retired very angrily when somebody came to him and said, "Hey, here's the new program. We're doing this war on drug things, and we're gonna open this city up to the drug trade." And he said, "No way are you guys doing that on my watch." And they said, "Well, that's the program, so get with it, or you gotta go."
Do you know which Skousen that was? Do you know if it was Cleon Skousen?
That was Cleon, yes.
Okay. Yeah, he's prolific in a lot of ways, doing the John Birch Society thing.
Sarah, thank you so much for the call.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Happy New Year. 603-283-6160. Do you have some thoughts on that? Is your government corrupt? Do you think governments can actually coddle cartels? I do. This is Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The FBI says it believes the suspect in the New Orleans New Year's attack wasn't acting alone before he plowed through a crowd of revelers, killing at least 10 people. It also revealed that the man, a former member of the U.S. military, had an Islamic State flag tied to the back of his pickup truck. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
The FBI believes Shamsuddin Jabbar was not solely responsible for the attack on New Year's morning, and it has appealed to the public for new information about him. The 42-year-old Army veteran drove a white pickup truck around bollards and through a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at 3:15 in the morning local time, before coming to a stop and exchanging gunfire with police, where he was killed. Officials found weapons and explosive devices in the pickup truck, as well as more explosives in the French Quarter, the area where the attack took place. The major college football game known as the Sugar Bowl was due to be held in New Orleans on Wednesday night, but it's now been postponed by 24 hours.
Police in Las Vegas are investigating a vehicle explosion outside the city's Trump Towers hotel complex. Videos circulating online show a Tesla Cybertruck exploding in front of the hotel entrance. According to media reports, the explosion happened after the vehicle pulled into the valet area of the hotel. Deputy Chief of the Clark County Fire Department, Thomas Touchstone, says it was an electric vehicle that caught on fire and that the driver has been killed.
There were 7 minor injuries, 2 of which were transported to UMC, again for minor injuries, and there is 1 fatality within the Cybertruck.
There's no information yet on what caused the fire. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is a close ally of Tesla owner Elon Musk, and the 2 men spent New Year's together at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Hopes of a ceasefire being close in Gaza appear to be fading, with a new report saying mediators haven't been able to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate in recent days. FSN's Trent Murray is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Despite earlier hopes that a deal could be close, the Wall Street Journal reports that Israel and Hamas have hit an impasse in their negotiations, and there's no immediate signs the two sides could be about to agree to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Citing sources close to the negotiations, the report suggests a proposed deal which would have centered around a 60-day ceasefire in exchange for 30 Israeli hostages being returned has now been walked back by both sides. Meanwhile, a Security Cabinet meeting to discuss negotiations was cancelled Wednesday. The Times of Israel reports that there's currently no Israeli teams in Doha or Cairo working on an agreement, and there's currently no plans to send one.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, what should happen to Asma al-Assad, the wife of fallen Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad? She's in Russia, where she and her husband have been offered asylum. It's reported that she is suffering from leukemia, doesn't want to stay in Russia, and doesn't want to stay with her husband. She's a British citizen, born in the UK, with the right to live in Britain if she chooses. But should Britain allow that to happen? Sam Kiley is World Affairs Editor of The Independent.
It's reported out of the Russian media that actually their assets there have been frozen, which is no great surprise. I mean, the family's believed to own about 18 significant properties in Moscow, to have invested some $250 million and to have fled there with over $1 billion in gold and cash. So if that is true and it has been frozen, then in a sense they've paid their rent forward to the Putin regime for some time. They may be looking forward to some pocket money. I think that the issue for Asma would be, even if she were able to return to the UK, who would pay for her medical care? We don't know exactly what her medical condition is, but there are sort of strong rumours, which is as good as you get out of Moscow very often, that she has leukemia, members of her family being quoted as saying she's got a 50-50 chance of survival, and that she wants to come back to the UK. There would be some ethical decisions there.
And the British government has broad powers to strip her of citizenship if that move is considered conducive to the public good. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The FBI says it believes the suspect in the New Orleans New Year's attack wasn't acting alone. Police in Las Vegas are investigating a vehicle explosion outside the city's Trump Towers hotel complex. And hopes of a ceasefire in Gaza appear to be fading, with a new report saying mediators haven't been able to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate in recent days. That is the latest feature story news.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Poets across the nation issued a statement Thursday announcing that shadows, inky sharp as the raven's beak, meet the clouds like dusty charcoal on an ashen brow. Citing the ageless gloom of morning and a weary sun, its astroluminescence wrapped in arid gauze, the report noted that doubt lingers in the frail minutes of a young dawn.
For what is the sound of hope? For what is life's moment of fulfillment? The supple lie of spring prolongs the inquisition. Father! Father! Do you not sense the dread of autumn's looming song danced in trembling half-step? 1, 2, 1, 2.
The poets later added, womb, womb, womb. And in local news, a sad sack is bullied by an area goose. In other news, a photographer specializes in those pictures where lights going by really fast look like lines. An entree is apparently the kind you squeeze lime over, and employees finally get that break room bathtub they wanted.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Thank you for joining us for hour number 3 of our show. We do 3 hours. Soon to be changing it up a little bit, but at least for tonight, we're doing 3 hours of radio, and we like that. We like the fact that it's open phones radio.
That's right. It's exciting to me that we have an open phone show because we can bring on listeners, they can talk about their topics, and we don't have to worry about going through a screener.
Yeah, you just talk, and I keep my finger on the dump button if you say a bad word, so we really don't have anything to lose.
Like if you start saying George Carlin's famous 7 words, we'll just dump you.
Can't do that, but I do want to remind everyone that Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. In studio, it is Chris,
Stu,
and Riley.
And we are going to go right to the phones where we've got David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too.
And
what?
It's a little early to be making those sort of accusations about this new year. Come on.
It's not going to be crappy. Humbug. I didn't get a chance to do it about Christmas either. So
okay, now you're all caught up. So what's on your mind?
Have yourself a lousy little, what's next, Martin Luther King Day or something?
I guess, yeah, it used to be President's Day, but I think
That's February, yeah.
That's in February.
Day. The dude that was assassinated by the FBI.
Yeah.
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 So anyway,
MLK was making too much noise, so
that was unfortunate too. That guy had he had a really good message.
He did.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, even if he was a hypocrite.
Even if what?
Even if he was a hypocrite, he had a good message. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Yeah, none of us are perfect though. Huh?
Well, I am.
I'm sure.
Well, me and Big J.
No, maybe Lori, but probably no one else.
No. Just me and Big J.
Who's Big J? J Noon?
What? How can you be a good Mormon if you don't know who Big J is?
I think that's what they refer to Jesus as, right? Don't they in your services refer to the Big J?
I mean, Joseph Smith maybe, but I mean, they also refer to Jesus.
Sacrilegious, Mr. Momo.
They also refer to Jesus, but I've never heard him called Big J.
Well, you should go to church once in a while.
I probably should, huh?
Yeah, that might help. Man. So, first I want to interject. I mean, I interjected all that.
You wanted to talk about your resolution.
Well, that too, but you need a resolution because whenever it's required in the United States on FCC controlled radio stations or bound radio stations, that when Chuck from Longview calls in, when he ends his call, you have to say, "Don't you ever call my radio program ever again, you SOB." That's what you got to say to Chuck.
Okay,
it's required.
Yeah. No, he hung up before I could say anything, so there you go.
Well, that's why he hung up. See, it works. If you start saying that, it keeps them from lingering on the line and saying, more objectionable things.
I'll do that if every time you call in, you thank us for letting you listen.
What? Say that again?
I said I'll do that if every time you call in, you thank us for letting you listen.
Okay, that's fine. I do that already anyway, don't I?
I don't know.
Absolutely. You're always singing our praises.
Right. So, and what I wanted to, or was going to talk about something you mentioned there, Chris, about contrarian people. But Jet called in, and I'm actually more interested in that at the moment. I would like to, when Jet actually, would you allow? And I know the answer is yes. So this is just
rhetorical.
Yeah. Jet to call back in or to call in and put him on the line on my call so I can ask him questions about what he brought up about his little algo bot automated trading AI thing that he's building.
Maybe that might be a conversation that you and Jet can have privately.
No. We want to have it on Free Talk Live so that people can benefit so that they can be wealthy too. You're trying to keep all the wealth for yourself. Wait a minute there, Mr. Momo guy. You trying to keep all the wealth for yourself? You don't want the rest of it?
Exactly. I don't want you to be wealthy.
So nothing we do here could be construed as investment advice. Yeah, I don't know. And I do know, here's what I do know, is that every time I've tried to combine two callers, it has ended horribly. It's like I hang up on one or both. So
So we just need somebody else to sit in the chair when this happens.
Exactly. Call in on a Bonnie night.
Put the blind guy in your chair, and nothing could go wrong.
Exactly. Riley would certainly be as good a first chair host as I am. I have no doubt. Stu also. Stu would exceed me. So.
Did you say good? As good?
As well.
Bad.
He would.
Bad.
He couldn't do any worse. That's what I'm saying.
Well, possibly he could, but it would be fun experiencing it.
I don't think Riley would have too much challenge with this. I mean, if we put little bumps on like where the keys were, I mean, you do stuff tactily.
Tactily?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a very tactile learner.
Yeah, so
I mean, we put bumps, put markings on things like buttons and knobs and things like that. I could figure it out. It's not that hard.
See? He's got confidence. It's the one thing we look for in a first-year host.
Is that why Riley is always feeling up people when they come in the studio to so he knows what they look like?
Exactly.
That's his excuse.
Cool. I think I'll go blind. Wait a minute. That's a thing, isn't it? Let's see. How do you go blind?
You just identify as blind.
Yeah, just
David,
identify as blind, David.
Just identify. Huh? All you got to wear sunglasses. That's it. And say, I identify as blind, and tell them that next time you go for your driver's license. I don't think they can turn you down for that.
No, that would be discriminatory.
Exactly.
But I think that thing about it'll make you go blind. Is that how you went blind, Riley?
I was born blind, so I don't know.
It was before
Born
he
blind.
learned that particular skill.
Yeah, maybe it was in utero. You're early learner.
Maybe.
Early, yeah. And what's that? There's a joke there somewhere about something about it's about your first time kind of thing, and instead of at an early age, it's at an early urge. But I don't remember how the joke goes.
Yeah.
In order to apply it to Riley in utero. So,
Maybe you should only tell jokes that you remember how they go.
Do that before you start them.
I didn't intend to tell that joke. It was it just kind of was sprung on me, and so
You do need to work on your improv.
yeah, I do. And I
Okay.
shouldn't have used that word sprung. Sorry, I didn't want to get you in trouble with the FCC or anything.
Oh,
But I do want to know about Jet's algorithm that he's writing. Jet. So when you call in again, Jet, I'd like you to expand on that because I'm interested and I'd like to buy your service when you get it to that stage.
Do you have any specific things you would like to know about it?
Yeah. Well, since Jet isn't here personally, so he can tell us about it. But so let's pretend that Stu is Jet, and Stu's good enough. He can pull this off. So Stu, so tell me about your algorithm that you're writing to do your day trading or swing trading or whatever you're doing in an automated fashion, Stu.
Well, it's an AI that looks for trends in the price of cryptocurrencies and determines which ones are going up and which ones are going down, and it makes long and short positions accordingly.
Wow. Cool. And how is this? Without not talking in actual coding language, but in the English language, how do you write a computer software program? I presume essentially is what that is. How do you write it? What kind of commands? What is it looking for? What does it search for? And
Well, you don't use G code, which is the only computer code that I'm familiar with. I can tell you that.
And that's the great thing about, Jet doesn't even have to, I don't know what Jet's background is, but now you can just come up with
pilot, obviously. His name is Jet.
AI prompts to write your code for you. Just ask ChatGPT to write you a Python code to do this and then to do that and then all this stuff. And I think most coding is going to be done or reviewed by AI anyway, so I'm less interested in a future where we actually have to learn to code, because I never did, not well, but to AIs that are capable of producing code based on what we tell it.
I wonder if you could make the AI too busy with just too many questions. Like if you ask it every 30 seconds, which coin should I buy, or should I close this position? Or
most of the models charge you based on usage, so you can do that. It'll just charge you accordingly, and at that point, it's going to probably become financially unsustainable. But I think if you asked it to check every minute, write a program. That's the thing. If you can cause AI to create code for you to do something, then maybe you're just running a service that runs your software, and that's it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be where a lot of the AI innovation, quote unquote, is going to be in wrangling AI to do what you want it to do. Actually, I brought that up, it was years ago. But my prediction a few years back was AI Wrangler will be something that we see on job resumes. And I kind of half jokingly brought that up, but it turns out that people are actually talking about the ability to wrangle AI to be good at writing prompts to get the results that you want them to do. That's the biggest challenge for me with AI is what exactly do I ask it? And to get exactly what I want. So I think that's going to be an interesting skill that's going to develop for the next generation of programmers and things like that.
Yeah. and I do know regarding Jet's project. I do know there are, there's actually a lot of competition doing that nowadays. You can already buy into services where the product that Jet is developing or similar products are already available for purchase and use. And I'd be curious how his is going to compare to what's already on the market. If it can be another one of the same thing at a different price point, or is it going to be varied a little bit from what's already available?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. What makes your product different in the market? And why should I spend money on your product and not these thousands of trading platforms that already do some variation of this already?
Oh, which ones are you familiar with?
All of them. Absolutely all of them. I mean, by that, I mean none of them. But there are programs. I mean, Jesus, I cannot imagine how many different apps Wall Street uses that were developed in-house or just available on the open market that they've used to do this idea of trading. There was a book I read years ago, but it talked about, I remember, it was freedom.tm by Daniel Suarez, and it was about him. His books are always written about current science, but what are the likely outcomes? And one of the outcomes was, okay, we begin to automate so many things, and it's going to be inevitable that they automate trading so that these algorithms could pick up minuscule rises and drops in stock price and execute tens of thousands of trades a second to capitalize on the volatility of the market. And
well, they already do that.
They do that now, but not when Daniel Suarez wrote this book. A fictional book, but and that person who developed this and was just basically collecting huge checks every day from millions and millions of trades. He saw him in the book. He ended up getting taken out by AI. So somebody was willing to kill him for basically making ridiculous sums of money, yet not producing anything. And I think that's the issue a lot of people have with markets. They don't see anything productive being created, yet these people that are very good at it are billionaires.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem for me.
Yeah, I figured. Is there anything being generated? Are stock prices being influenced to lead to positive reflections of a stock's value? And I think right now everybody has to look at the stock market and go, there's very little to be learned from stock prices other than it's manipulated on a huge level.
Same kind of thing goes with crypto prices, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
The price of gold and silver is set in London on purpose.
Manipulated by whom?
Different entities, usually
like
bankers.
Like
Wells Fargo. I don't know.
Like the Bank of England.
Yeah. Well, is it the Bank of London? Bank of England? I don't know. That bank over there in London is doing the price fixing on gold and silver, for example.
Well, they still have. Doesn't the United Kingdom still have some tie to gold and silver sterling?
I'm not sure.
I believe at a very low level they still have that, and they still talk about the pound and stuff like that. I don't know for sure. I need to look into that before I throw that kind of stuff out there. But
a couple of weeks ago, I got a silver Canadian quarter in my change. I was
what year?
I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. I never thought I'd find an actual silver coin in somebody's register.
What year did they stop doing silver in Canada? Or ballpark, was it the 60s?
I think it was, I forgot what year it was. I think it was the same year as U.S., though.
64.
Yep, sounds right.
Yeah, that year brought us nothing but trouble.
I just know about the copper pennies, 82 and earlier. Those are real copper. Everything after that is copper plated zinc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was wrong with?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. No.
64.
I might have been born that year, so.
Oh yeah, that would ruin that.
Yeah. Yeah.
On what day?
A day.
Well, we got to know which day is the worst day of the whole year.
No. You got to guess.
No, I mean, well, so I just got to go through my day, and then whichever one feels the worst, that's the one that you were
When
born on.
I'm on the air, you can ask me one day of the year, and after 365 calls, you will know.
Is your birthday today?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's it for
Tomorrow?
this call. No. You use your one guess.
I tried to speak in a second one. That I could have cut my number of inquiries down by 50%. I could have got away with 2.
This is true.
I'm just trying to be efficient.
So, anything else, David?
Only if you don't have other callers and you want to continue talking about financial markets, I could continue.
If you want to talk about financial markets, that's fine. Instead of my birth date, that's great.
Yeah, I want to talk about financial markets. So where were we when we were interrupted by your birthday? When we were talking about silver, when they took real metal, so to speak, out of real money, so to speak, in 64.
In the U.S., it was 64 for at least the silver out. It used to be 90%. And so please continue to talk with Stu and Riley. I got to get up for just a second.
Okay, don't forget to flush. So, aside from before we went to metal, I know I asked you. We got to gold and silver because I asked you about who is manipulating markets, and so you chose to talk about the Bank of England or whatever in their manipulation of the metals markets, silver and gold. What about other than metals? Let's just say stocks, because you're originally talking about stock market being manipulated. So who's manipulating the stock market?
I mean, it could be the bankers as well, but then you got BlackRock and those companies.
Vanguard and State Street. Those guys do it for sure. I mean, you might just call it whale activity or whatever, but they coordinate with each other and they don't tell you first. Is the point? It turns out Canada was putting silver in their quarters until 1967.
Okay, so a couple years behind us. Good for them.
I know. I happened to see a table today in a slide, something I was looking at that had. I'm trying to think of the title of the table, but at the top of it was BlackRock with 10 point something trillion dollars under management, and then State Street I think was next with 9 point something trillion. And then was it Vanguard was next with 7 or 8 trillion, and then everybody else after that, so that's 30 trillion. I believe that in the entire world economy, there's 200. That's known assets 200 and some, meaning 210, 220, $200 trillion in assets under management.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard have, 15% of that? That's 30 some trillion, and then everybody else comes after that.
That is nuts. David, thank you so much for your call. 603-283-6160 is the number to call and get on the air. There's still time. This is Free Talk Live.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The FBI says it believes the suspect in the New Orleans New Year's attack wasn't acting alone before he plowed through a crowd of revelers, killing at least 10 people. It also revealed that the man, a former member of the U.S. military, had an Islamic State flag tied to the back of his pickup truck. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
The FBI believes Shamsuddin Jabbar was not solely responsible for the attack on New Year's morning, and it has appealed to the public for new information about him. The 42-year-old Army veteran drove a white pickup truck around bollards and through a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at 3:15 in the morning local time, before coming to a stop and exchanging gunfire with police, where he was killed. Officials found weapons and explosive devices in the pickup truck, as well as more explosives in the French Quarter, the area where the attack took place. The major college football game known as the Sugar Bowl was due to be held in New Orleans on Wednesday night, but it's now been postponed by 24 hours.
Police in Las Vegas are investigating a vehicle explosion outside the city's Trump Towers hotel complex. Videos circulating online show a Tesla Cybertruck exploding in front of the hotel entrance. According to media reports, the explosion happened after the vehicle pulled into the valet area of the hotel. Deputy Chief of the Clark County Fire Department, Thomas Touchstone, says it was an electric vehicle that caught on fire and that the driver has been killed.
There were 7 minor injuries, 2 of which were transported to UMC, again for minor injuries, and there is 1 fatality within the Cybertruck.
There's no information yet on what caused the fire. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is a close ally of Tesla owner Elon Musk, and the 2 men spent New Year's together at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Hopes of a ceasefire being close in Gaza appear to be fading, with a new report saying mediators haven't been able to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate in recent days. FSN's Trent Murray is in Tel Aviv with the latest.
Despite earlier hopes that a deal could be close, the Wall Street Journal reports that Israel and Hamas have hit an impasse in their negotiations, and there's no immediate signs the two sides could be about to agree to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Citing sources close to the negotiations, the report suggests a proposed deal which would have centered around a 60-day ceasefire in exchange for 30 Israeli hostages being returned has now been walked back by both sides. Meanwhile, a Security Cabinet meeting to discuss negotiations was cancelled Wednesday. The Times of Israel reports that there's currently no Israeli teams in Doha or Cairo working on an agreement, and there's currently no plans to send one.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. It's our final segment, but there's still time for you to get on the air, bring up whatever you like, or talk about something we've already talked about. Doesn't matter to us. Guess it's Open Phones Radio. But first, I would like to thank Milk Dud for being an amplifier with us here on Free Talk Live. That means that Milk Dud went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. So thanks to Milk Dud and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. amps.freetalklive.com. In studio, it's Chris,
Stu,
And Riley.
And we have been all over the place. We've talked about their tragedies. I mean, tragedy in New Orleans, where New Orleans, 15 people died. The allegation is that a guy drove a van and began shooting police officers and distributed various IEDs in the area that never went off, but they were all found. That's the narrative we know so far, and also that someone, we don't know who or even whether they were male or female, drove a Tesla Cybertruck up to the Port Couture of the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas and detonated something in the back of the truck, which then caused it to catch fire and killed the driver and allegedly injured a bunch of people that were around the truck at the time. The FBI is investigating that as a potential act of terrorism. Elon Musk says that the telemetry from the Cybertruck doesn't show anything that would indicate it was operating any way other than normally, so who knows. Other than that, we've taken a whole bunch of callers. Now it's always fun.
It is always fun. It's nice to have callers on the show, so it's not just all of us droning into the microphones about stuff.
Callers is what this show is all about.
Yeah, it really is.
Even Skeeter.
We'll put up with him.
We do put up with him.
It's his ideas. We can bring on the radio and say, hey, these are Skeeter's ideas. These are not real good ideas.
And then we see if we can make any sense out of them.
Right. Which always is the challenge. This I thought was an interesting story Riley brought in. So in Colorado, they have legalized psychedelic therapies to some degree. And this is causing a clash between conservatives and veterans. This comes to us from the AP. Jeff Bedane writes today. Colorado Springs, as Colorado becomes the second state to legalize psychedelic therapies this week, a clash is playing out in Colorado Springs, where conservative leaders are restricting the treatment over objections from some of the city's 90,000 veterans who became flag bearers for psychedelic therapies to treat PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. Colorado residents voted to legalize the therapeutic use of psilocybin, a chemical compound found in psychedelic mushrooms, in a 2022 ballot measure, launching 2 years of rulemaking before it could be used to treat conditions such as depression and PTSD. This week, companies and people will be able to apply for licenses to administer their mind-altering drugs, though treatment will likely not be available for some months as applications are processed. Colorado joins Oregon in legalizing psilocybin therapy, though the drug remains illegal as in most other states and federally. So I love that disclaimer. Though the drug remains illegal in most other states and federally, regardless of what you do as a state, the idea of this being a republic, the idea that the United States is a collection of states that have banded together to form the United States, a compact. No one really recognizes that. Yet the states are acting like it really is by ignoring federal law about marijuana, about psychedelics. And
I think it's a beautiful thing when states will ignore the federal government over things like this.
Yeah, as they rightfully should, because it is absolutely their right to do so. There's nothing in the Constitution that says only the federal government shall regulate the use of psilocybin. That is nowhere in the Constitution. The Constitution was purported to be the rules that would constrain government to a small and finite list of things that the federal government would do.
Always amended and changed the rules, and so we're going to do this now.
Yeah, and it's an asinine. Over the last year, a growing number of Oregon cities have voted to ban psilocybin. While Colorado metros cannot ban the treatment under state law, several conservative cities have worked to preemptively restrict what are known as, quote, healing centers, unquote. At a city council meeting in Colorado Springs this month, members were set to vote on extending the state prohibition on healing centers from 1,000 feet to 1 mile from certain locations such as schools. From the lectern, veterans implored them not to. Quote, we have an opportunity to support veterans, and it's a really easy one to say yes to, unquote, said Lane Ballone, a Special Forces veteran who said he's benefited from his own psychedelic experiences. Ballone argued that the restrictions effectively limit the number of centers and would mean longer wait lists for the treatment. Veterans have pulled in some conservative support for psychedelic therapy, managing to set it apart from other politically charged drug policies, such as legalizing marijuana. The distinction was made clear by council member David Leinweber, who said at the council meeting both the marijuana is, quote, literally killing our kids, unquote, and that he supported greater access to psychedelic therapy. Psilocybin is far more restricted in Colorado than marijuana, which the state legalized in 2014. Psilocybin is decriminalized, but that won't allow for recreational dispensaries for the substance, which will largely be confined to licensed businesses and therapy sessions with licensed facilitators.
Imagine having to go beg for permission to grow a plant or access a fungi. Huh.
Yeah.
What an odd thought.
What an odd thought. And bear in mind, these were not grown in labs. No one created them.
Right.
They've
existed in nature for millions of years.
And have been used religiously for thousands of years.
Probably even longer than Christianity and Judaism have been around.
Yeah. And
may have been used by Judaism and Christianity in some place and time.
I'm sure. And a lot of other religions, they use them as part of their sacraments. And the idea that states or the federal government, this is what galls me most, can tell anyone that what you're doing is illegal by finding something in nature and putting it in your body is insane and asinine. Still, allowing broader access to the treatment hasn't been easy for most city council members, including 3 who are veterans. Colorado Springs is home to several military installations, including the U.S. Air Force Academy, and local leaders have touted it as an ideal community for retired service members. Quote, I will never sit up here and criticize for a veteran for wanting to find medical treatment to fix or to help with the issues they carry, unquote, said Council President Randy Helms, a veteran himself. Still, he continued, quote, do I think it's helpful to not just veterans but to individuals? Probably so. Do I think it still needs to be tested under strict requirements? Yes, unquote. Colorado Springs City Council passed the proposed restrictions. While research has shown promise for psychedelic drugs such as psilocybin and MDMA, it's also known as Molly, it helps people with conditions such as alcoholism, depression, and PTSD. The scientific field remains in its early stages. Okay, now you have to have permission not only for government, but you have to have the science being settled before
pretty
we'll
much
start using this as an excuse.
Hooray for bureaucracy, huh?
Yeah. Quote, I'm very positive about the potential values, but I'm concerned that we're getting too far ahead of our skis, unquote, said Jeff Lieberman, a professor of psychiatry at Columbia University, who's been involved in studies of psychedelic therapy's efficacy. The risks, said Lieberman, include customers being misled and paying out of pocket for expensive treatments. Why are these treatments expensive?
Yeah, psilocybin mushrooms are not very expensive, especially compared to a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs.
Especially, you can grow these at home.
You really can.
You can.
Yep.
If you have the right conditions, you can grow them anywhere.
Yeah. But he also said there are cases that the drugs can exacerbate some extreme mental conditions, such as schizophrenia.
Sure. But why should the government say that schizophrenics can't take psilocybin?
Right. In Oregon, where the treatment started in June 2023, costs can reach $2,000 for one session. What? I mean, this is crazy. And I will just share my own Oregon story. When I was growing up in Oregon, we lived in the middle of the desert, so obviously we didn't have a lot of mushrooms out there, even though we did have a lot of cows. But most of the mushrooms in our state came from the wet western side, like along the Cascade Mountains. And
yeah, that whole coastal area is just rife with mushrooms.
It was, and once the season came, and I can't remember when the season was, a couple hippies from my hometown would go to where the mushrooms were, and they would pick mushrooms, usually in cow fields and, just anywhere there was a lot of dung, there were a lot of mushrooms. They would pick them, and then when they would bring them back to our very, 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 very small town with like under a couple hundred people in population.
Mm-hmm.
But they would bring back garbage bags.
Yeah, that's a pretty good supply.
Wow.
And these things weren't even seen as like they had some market value.
Right.
But nobody paid a lot for them because they just got picked, and these guys would bring back way, way, way more than they could ever sell.
Right.
So there would be a few months where mushrooms would be ingested by a large number of people. And whatever was left over, I'm sure those guys sold somewhere, and it was something. But there for a while, I mean, this was every year. There was a plethora of mushrooms, and just it was kind of help yourself.
Yep. Psilocybin mushrooms are pretty cool. I've eaten them before.
I have too, and what I appreciated, and I've done many hallucinogenics, not all that I want to, but I've done most of them. There's a real distinction between eating natural psychedelics as opposed to lab-created psychedelics. There's no comparison to me about the effects of lab LSD versus something like hallucinogenic psilocybin. It's so different. I mean, it's natural, and I've never ever in my life had a bad trip on mushrooms. I'm sure people have. I'm sure they ingested too much, but I've never had anything that I could even say came close to bad,
So there are three aspects to having yourself a good trip. You got dose, set, and setting.
Yeah,
I agree.
And that's you want to make sure you're not taking too much or too little, and then you want to make sure the place you're in is a comfortable place for you, and that it's not, you're not going to have anything unexpected or negative happen to you, and then you want to have somebody around that you trust and can help you through your trip if things get a little weird for you. And things have gotten a little weird for me a couple times tripping.
They have me too. The worst. And they weren't even that bad, and they were not on mushrooms. I can say on LSD, one time I did a bunch on a school night, which is never to be recommended.
I wouldn't make that mistake.
I might recommend that if it causes you to miss school.
Exactly.
Anything that keeps you out of that place.
The problem was I went home and I was all alone. So I had no one to... I didn't need anybody to walk me through it. I knew what I was getting into, and I knew what I expected. But I'm just going to say that left alone with my mind to wander created some interesting effects that I wasn't able to completely control as I would have in a setting with my friends. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, things just sort of went wild. I don't regret it at all. It wasn't like a bad trip. But comparing that to natural hallucinogens like psilocybin, it was just a marked difference. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who's really felt and experienced that. Like, I noticed it very distinctly from LSD.
I haven't had enough experience with different hallucinogenic plants or lab-grown psychedelics to tell you the difference, but my experience with mushrooms is that mushrooms definitely are nicer.
Pleasant would be my first time.
But my assumption is that something created in a lab might not have the same life to it, might not be as animated, if you will.
Boy, I've had some animated acid trips.
Yeah, so have I.
Interesting.
I would
Okay.
say that acid gave me a more powerful trip, and if it were strictly about recreational, I would probably prefer acid. But these things can give you a different point of view on thoughts that you already have.
Yeah.
And mushroom seems a more honest communicator for that type of stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What I experienced was, I don't know, I didn't know the word at that time, but more holistic. It felt more, it just all around felt more natural to me. It didn't feel like I was under the influence of something alien.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, and we all have hallucinogens in our minds at all times. I mean,
yeah,
yep.
That this is a fact. I mean, you think about the most vivid dream you've ever had and gone, wow, how did that ever happen? Yeah, you can thank your brain for that, because it will release some hormones and some combinations of different things in your mind that will cause you to see things that are out of the norm. So, not to change subjects completely, but I think this is really interesting. I did mention it to Bonnie. Have you guys heard of a podcast called The Telepathy Tapes?
Bonnie was talking about those, but I haven't
I've heard
had a
it
chance
mentioned on
to
Free
look
Talk
at it
Live,
yet.
but that's about it.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was talking about it with Duncan Trussell a little while ago.
Yeah, it's I think right now number one, at least on Apple's podcast charts. And I found it kind of by accident a few weeks ago, and we listened to all of it, and it was pretty amazing. This certain very specific group of people, they were talking about non-speaking autistics. So people that suffer from autism or have autism, depending on how you want to look at it, and do not have the ability to communicate verbally. These people, once they learned other ways of communicating, were describing the ability to communicate telepathically and to go to common areas. Often told phrase was "go up on the hill." And it was interesting because this wasn't just a group of non-speaking autistic people in Atlanta, Georgia, for example. The same phrases and same words were being used by people in England and people being used in South America. And all of these people seem to have the same common experience and the ability to communicate telepathically. And I thought that was really interesting because, and the reason I bring it up is the corollaries to the use of hallucinogens and people seeing things that they couldn't see unless they were in some way unlocking their potential. which is how I always felt when I was taking mushrooms.
Yeah. Well, my opinion on that is that anything you could get out of using psychedelics for, you could get without the psychedelics, but maybe just not as fast.
Right. I agree.
Whereas sometimes the psychedelics just ram 4 speeds, jams it into your brain.
Yeah. And go, wake up. This is what life really is. And I found it really interesting. I thoroughly encourage everyone to listen to the telepathy tapes and to take them with a grain of salt. I'm not completely sold on everything in the series. I am completely sold, and I was before, on the fact that human beings have yet to, on a wide scale, unlock everything that we have available to us and everything within us. We are capable of so much more, I believe. And
I think so too, but it might radically change the human experience to such that it's not even close to the same thing anymore.
I do believe that. I'm willing to take that gamble.
Yeah.
I'm willing to, because this hasn't always worked for us.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, really, we have been playing with the same set of rules for kind of society to follow, and I'm not so sure that it's getting us to a good place.
Yeah, there's this notion that you kind of can't unknow something once you know it. It was first called to my attention when, in the aspect of, I had a boss that would tell any of his employees exactly how much the other employees were getting paid, but he'd tell them first, here's my disclaimer. Once I tell you, then you have to deal with knowing. So now you're gonna know that guy makes more than you or whatever, and you're gonna have to keep it cool about it. And I kind of think of it that way, but I think I would always go for the more knowledge.
I would too, and I think that would. It's like I've never had any thoughts of, wow, if I could just rule over everyone, it would be so great. I've never had that feeling. If everyone had to follow my every direction, I've never felt that would be a good thing.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare.
It does. Yet we're in a system where we support and we encourage the use of big government. And why do we do that? I mean, that to me is the place that human beings have evolved to believing is a good point, is when you have a good, strong government. And I think when we're faced with something like that, then maybe we all do need to take mushrooms. Maybe we all do need to wake the hell up and go, this is not a good thing. That you believe you need someone to rule over you, that needs to tell you what to do in every aspect of your life. I disagree.
That's true. Something's not working, and maybe mushrooms will help people figure it out.
Maybe. Unlock the Matrix.
Exactly. That's it for tonight's episode of Free Talk Live. Thank you so much for listening, and you'll hear us again.
Yeah, we'll be around.
Peace.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel